I didn't know. I thought all medical procedures and diagnoses were the same. Now, because of the Laura Bush Institute, I know there are differences between men and women, and I can insist on personalized care from my healthcare providers. Because diagnostic standards have historically been based on the male physiology, women, you and the people that you care about are at greater risk. This is what the Laura W. Bush Institute for Women's Health is passionate about. If your physician is well informed, you could avoid a misdiagnosis, complications, or even a delay in life-saving treatment.
Gender bias in medicine just about killed me. When I was 40, I knew I was having a heart attack with chest pains, shortness of breath, and sweating. So I went to the ER. Over the next 4 hours, I was misdiagnosed twice, even with a blood test confirmation. It took 3 days, but even then they weren't prepared for that. So I had to come back the next day for a stent. Sex and gender differences matter.
The Laura Bush Institute is integrating sex and gender differences into healthcare curricula so future physicians and nurses get the latest information and women receive the personalized care that they deserve. We host events in communities across Texas sharing vital health information with women and girls to improve their lives mentally, physically, and emotionally. We provide fun educational programs that inspire self-confidence and personal power in young girls. We also entertain college women with events that teach self-defense, acceptance, and friendship as they navigate their college years. Our signature events across Texas bring fascinating people who inspire us and lend support to our mission and programs. Through our focus on mental health, we provide transcranial magnetic stimulation treatments for women with chronic depression and anxiety.
I no longer live with the crippling depression that I did before deciding to try BrainsWay Deep TMS. Thanks to BrainsWay TMS and the staff at Texas Tech University, and of course God, I sit here today with tears of joy streaming down my face as I believe I've been given a second chance of living life.
We also facilitate breast and cervical cancer screenings for uninsured women.
If it would not have been for the Laura Bush Foundation, I know for a fact that I would not have gone to get checked out, and I never would have found out that I had early stage cancer. I am cancer-free.
Your support plays a critical role. Join us. Together we can improve the lives and health of women everywhere. Our thanks to former First Lady Mrs. Laura Bush, our National Advisory Board, our community boards and volunteers, and the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center.
Hi, and welcome to Feed Your Mind, Nourish Your Skin. I'm Connie Tyne, Executive Director of the Laura Bush Institute for Women's Health, and we are so pleased you could join us today. We have a great program for you. We have Holly Rowe, ESPN reporter and cancer fighter, and we have Dr. Michelle Tarbox, who's a dermatologist. Each of them are going to bring very important information to us. A few logistics to get started. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We hope that we'll have time at the end of our program for some of your questions. So please put them in there if you'd like. There's also a little encouragement button. So if you hear something you like, share your enthusiasm. And now I want to get right on to introducing our first speaker, Holly Rowe. Since she was a little girl, Holly has loved football, basketball, and baseball. She had a wonderful time going to sporting events with her dad and her family when she was growing up. It was no surprise to anyone when Holly decided to get a degree in broadcast journalism, which she did from the University of Utah. By the time she finished her degree, she'd already been doing play-by-play announcing and creating sport reports for the paper and for the radio station on campus. Holly began her career with some time at ABC and Fox Sports, but she found her home at ESPN in 1998, and that's the team that she has shared hundreds of thousands of hours of sports. And on Saturdays and Sundays, I look forward to turning on the TV just to see which game Holly's going to be on, because she is part of the fabric of our sports these days. Holly has reported on stories and players and coaches for many years. The one story she didn't plan on telling was her own. And yet in 2015, Holly was diagnosed with a rare form of skin cancer called melanoma. And that's a fight she's taken on with all the diligence and grace and determination that she does every single project. So Holly just got out of almost 3-month quarantine in Florida. She's been with the WNBA in the bubble. And fortunately for all of us, the season was over. They had a great victory by the Seattle Splash. And so Holly got to go home yesterday. So we are so pleased that she's able to talk to us today, and she's coming from her home, and she'll be sharing some very important story of her life with us. So Holly, we're ready.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you about something that I am very passionate about. Number one, it is about our skin and about nurturing our mind and our skin today. And I am the perfect example of what not to do with your skin. And so I don't know if many of you remember when you were kids, we had to do these scared straight things in school so that you didn't use drugs. So I'm hoping that today my presentation is going to be a little bit of scared straight for sun safety and health and protecting our skin, because I've learned the hard way all of the mistakes I made, and I hope I can share a little bit about what I've learned and what I'm continuing to do now to be safe in the sun and to be safe and not have harm's way with my skin. Give me one moment and I will get started sharing my screen with you. Okay, is that going well? Does everybody see that? Connie, are you seeing that okay? No, we don't. Okay, let me try one more time.
We're not seeing the share screen at this moment.
Okay, great. Let me go back. Here we go. We definitely did practice this, so I'm sorry. Hold on a minute.
We had it just, there we go. There we go.
You see it now? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll get started. So Connie talked about it a little bit, but I just thought you guys would get a kick out of this. This is who I was at 12 years old. Just the worst tomboy and the worst haircut in the history of man. And I was a little girl that just loved sports. But as you can see, I also was a little freckled kid. I lived in Salt Lake City, Utah, which has very high elevation. And I didn't know it at the time, but I have learned since that people who live at higher elevations have a higher incidence with skin cancer. So here's this 12-year-old little kid playing outside, being outdoors and living life. And I was just so passionate and so obsessed with sports. And it has kind of been what has driven me in my lifetime. This is the report I wrote for school when I was 12 years old. And you can see I love anything that has to do with sports. That was such a passion of mine. And I think that it's important that still to this day, I am working and living and loving what my passion is. You know, I worked very hard coming up. This is one of my favorite pictures because I'm working a game with Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, and I was doing it for free. I was an intern at a radio station, and that was a great experience that I would cover games, get to do and tape interviews with the radio station, and I volunteered and did it for free. So this was something that helped further me in my career, and then I got to ESPN. I've been at ESPN now for 25 years, and I think that part of what I've done there is build great relationships. This is, I'm almost 1000% sure, the only known selfie with Bob Knight. You all may know him. He used to coach at Texas Tech there in Lubbock. But I've had great relationships with people throughout my lifetime. Recently, this is a photo with Kobe Bryant. And recently he passed away. And the last interview I did with Kobe right before he passed, we were at the WNBA All-Star Game. And we did an interview with him, and we were talking about his little girl, Gigi, who loves basketball and was planning to play in the WNBA. And I asked him, as a parent, what are you doing to not be that player that you had such a winning edge and you were so obsessed with winning? How are you now fueling that into your daughter and not being overbearing? And he gave me some of the best advice I've ever heard. He said, I foster her own curiosity. Is if she's curious and wants to know how to win, I'm there for her, but I don't push it. She has to be curious and she has to want to do and learn and be great. And that's the last time I ever saw Kobe Bryant. And that was a very special moment for me in my career. So I fast forward to 2 nights ago, I was covering the WNBA championship game, game 3 of the finals. And the Seattle Storm won the championship with a young lady named Jewel Lloyd. And Jewel Lloyd wears number 24. It's the same number that Kobe Bryant wore. And she was one of the stars of the series. She shot 55% from the field. You know, most people are around in the 40s. She had 18 points a game and was phenomenal. And when I asked her at the end of the game in that championship moment why she did it, she said it was for Kobe. He always inspired me to be great and to be focused. And I just fueled all of the passion and focus that he instilled in me for this moment. So really special moment in my career this week with the Seattle Storm winning that WNBA championship. So I've kind of been going along in my career. Things have been going great. I've had these incredible moments with Bob Knight or Pat Summitt or Kobe Bryant, just, you know, getting to interview these athletes who work at the highest level. And then I hit a major bump in the road. And that's what I wanted to share about today with you, because I was very ignorant and I didn't know what I didn't know. And I want to maybe share some information with you that will help you not have the same problem. So as you can see, this picture where I've got my hospital gown and cap and stuff, I started out with a small mark on my chest and I went and had it biopsied. They said everything was fine. And about 1.5 years later, the scar where they had done the biopsy just wasn't growing back right. And it was kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was getting bigger fast. So I went in again, and if you can really see it, it wasn't big. It's maybe the size of a pea or maybe a garbanzo bean. And I was wanting them to just take it off because it looked ugly. And after a biopsy, they found that it was a rare form of melanoma called Desmoplastic Melanoma. And 3 in 1 million people get this type of melanoma. It's very unusual. And it's typically about 70% of people who are diagnosed with this are farmers, people who have spent their life out in the sun. And when they told me that, I just flashed back to my 25 years covering college football games on the sideline, where I was usually pretty good about putting sunscreen and makeup on my face, but I would often forget my chest. And I had this bizarre, rare type of cancer because of sun. And I was so upset because it's completely preventable. 90% of melanoma is completely preventable. And that's what I would want to share with you today with the, like, scream it from the rooftops if I can, because what I've gone through since then has absolutely been challenging and been the fight of my lifetime. So that one little spot doesn't look like much. And I had a surgery to remove it. They told me that it was stage 3C, and so that it was probably not that frightening. So I had a scar from, I don't know if you guys can see me, but from here to here for that one little spot to make sure they got clean margins. You know, so that was a little upsetting. It's kind of ruined my chest, my, you know, showing your skin in pretty dresses or shirts or what have you. It was the kind of a major blow, but I was fine, or so I thought. Fast forward about 6 months, and I had another tumor under my arm in my lymph node area that I had to have removed. And that ended up removing my entire armpit, all of my lymph nodes. And so I will forevermore have to wear this lymphedema sleeve, which again is not comfortable or easy, all from this little sunspot. That's how it all started, was one small sunspot. Moving forward from there, I found out that it had metastasized and spread to my lungs. And there was a day I was in the doctor's office where they told me that this was a deadly diagnosis, that inoperable tumors in your lungs were a very serious matter, and that melanoma spreads like wildfire once it has metastasized inside of your body in many patients. And so I'm just thinking, you know, like I started out thinking, this center picture was the first day that I had chemo, and I was so uninformed and arrogant. I was like, oh my gosh, look how cute I am with my selfie. You know, here I am, chemo first day. And that is literally the last day I have felt well in five years, because it has been a real roller coaster. After intensive chemo for 30 days on high dose interferon, it was a real challenge, and it was very difficult to keep navigating and keep working. But I'm very proud of this interview picture with Diana Taurasi, because I'm doing this interview with a PICC line in my arm. I just had chemo the morning before. I flew on a plane. I did this game, and that was a real challenge. But to me, it was important to keep working and to keep feeling like my life was normal throughout all of this. So as we kept going, the different treatments and so forth just kept my hair starting to fall out. And many women who've been through breast cancer, I'm sure there's a lot of people on this call today who've experienced something similar. You know, I would wash my hair, and anywhere I touched to wash my hair would just come out in my hands. And finally, this one morning I woke up, and all the hair that had fallen out had just gotten into this big knot, and I just couldn't even comb through my hair. So I went and got it cut. And I was just so depressed that day. I cut off all my hair, and I thought, well, I can sit home on the couch and be depressed, or I can get up and go to the ESPN ESPY Awards tonight and watch Craig Sager speak, who was winning the Arthur Ashe Courage Award for his fight with leukemia. So this depressing day where my hair's falling out, I'm really depressed, I'm still going through treatment, I still have cancer, but I got up and I went and I celebrated Craig Sager in that moment, and I got to meet Chance the Rapper, who I'm obsessed with. So this is my get up off the couch moment, even when things are going bad. So, you know, I started out life as a woman with no hair, and it's kind of a challenge when you're on television. And 11 days before this football game that you can see me working here at Texas, that is a Texas quarterback, Shane Buechele, he's a freshman, and that was a huge win they had over Notre Dame. And 11 days before that game, I had a new lung biopsy where they determined that I had those new tumors in my lungs. And so it was very depressing and upsetting, because I had gone from one simple spot on my skin to now my life is in serious jeopardy. And I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to tell my bosses. So I bought a wig. This is Wanda, my wig that you can see. I wore my wig to the game, but it was so hot in Texas, I did not want to wear my wig to the practices. So I showed up for Texas football practice thinking, no one will see me here. It's just the team. It's just the coaches. I'll wear a little hat. No one will see me, except for Matthew McConaughey, the world's sexiest man, who I met this day. He gave me a big hug and a kiss, and here I am bald in front of the world's sexiest man. It was very challenging for me, and as I look back on it now, I cannot believe in some cases how I kept going during this time, because you're out in the world, you don't feel well, you're getting treatment. I literally just found out that I had a new, very difficult diagnosis that I was facing. And I just kept going. And I really believe that my passion and my love of sports kept me going. But what I did do was change many of my behaviors. As you can see, I'm here and I am in a complete UPF 50 Suns shirt from a company that I love called Coolie Bar. If you have any interest, I would highly recommend them. I have completely changed my sun habits, because I used to just be this carefree girl. You know, I feel like I have spent my entire life trying to get a tan. And what I realized is that trying to get a tan for my entire life has nearly killed me. So I am changing my sun behavior. I have learned a very difficult lesson, and I continue each and every day to struggle, you know, with the results of my cancer treatment, my joint pain, my aches and pains, my lymphedema. You know, I try to put on a very sunny face and picture for the world, but this cancer has changed my life, and it has changed how I feel and how I move through the world. And what makes me so angry about it is it was totally preventable. This didn't have to happen. And so for anyone who is listening today, if we can prevent anyone out there from going through this, I would beg you to consider it and to do so. And that means changing your sun habits. I can't stress this enough. Today, just to even do this presentation, I've had to put, you know, makeup on my chest because I have so much sun damage, so many sunspots, because I would do tanning beds. I would go out, and even to this day, you know, it turns into spring and I'll think, oh, I need to get a little color so I can wear shorts or I can wear a tank top. And that is flawed thinking. That is absolutely what we cannot do in our life. And so protecting your skin has got to be our new form of beauty. Normalize protecting your skin. And whatever age range you're in right now, you can still protect your skin as you move forward. You know, I've kept working. It has been a great challenge. I tried to stay strong, you know, all through the very awkward growing your hair out on national TV phases. But I had a very exciting moment last April, or I guess it was the April before this one. Oprah Winfrey was speaking at an event, and I got to meet her after the event, and she said something to me that was very important in that moment. She said, I want my legacy to be this school that I built in Africa and these women that I have educated. And she said, Maya Angelou told her, your legacy is going to be the impact you have on people. Not a school, not a project, not anything financial. It is the impact you will have on people. And so after the event, when I got to have this photo op with Oprah, you know, they give you all these rules: no cameras, no purses. It has to be in groups. You know, no one gets a picture with Oprah alone. And by some miracle, I got to go up, and I had been a presenter at this conference and gone on the stage and did a speech, and she was in the back watching. And when I walked up to her, she said, you did a great job up there. And I said, oh, well, I wanted to tell you what impact you've had on my life, because you know, she has said so many powerful, wonderful things that have changed me as a woman. And she grabbed my hands like this and looked into my eyes, and she said, how so? How have I had an impact on you? And Oprah and I had this beautiful moment. And I told her that she has empowered me to look exactly as I am, to quit obsessing about, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not this enough. And start really living in this space and celebrating what I am good enough with. And, you know, we both got kind of choked up, and she said, well, thank you so much for sharing that. And so then we got to take this picture, and I love this picture so much because Oprah, you know, one of the most powerful women in the world, she said, wait. We took one photo and she wasn't happy with it. We did a photo and she said, let me move my hair. So she moved all of her hair like this so that our foreheads could be touching, because we had this very powerful, beautiful moment together. And I thank you for it, Oprah. That was really cool. But why I'm sharing this story with you is I hope in some small way today, I can have a tiny, teeny impact on all of you. Just like Oprah has impacted me and millions of women around the world, the impact I would like to have on you today is to take your skin seriously. It is a matter of life or death to protect your skin. I found out the hard way with what seemed like a very benign, innocent, stupid little sunspot that changed the course of my life. And thank God for immunotherapy that has come out recently, that my tumors in my lung are shrinking, that I am moving forward with my life, and I am getting a second chance where, thank goodness, if this research and this immunotherapy had not been out, you know, if I had gotten this 5 years ago, I wouldn't be with you today. So this has changed the course of my life. But our mission today is for you to protect your skin so that none of you have to have a similar experience. I'm going to try to close out my presentation. If I can do that succinctly here, give me one moment. But the message I'd love to leave you with is you can be beautiful with the skin you have, with the natural skin you have. You don't have to have sun. You don't have to adhere to this standard of beauty that we see in the magazines or what have you of getting a tan. I try to wear SPF 50 every day. I never leave the house. I have a little basket right by my door that I keep the sunscreen. I keep my sunglasses, my car keys, and sunscreen. I have just gotten to the point where I swim in long sleeve coolie bar shirts, swim shirts, long swim pants. And, you know, it's really interesting because it's had to be a new kind of habit for me. You know, even to this day, you know, even when we start getting into the warm weather and I want to put on a cute outfit or cute pants or cute this or that, I can't. I just can't, because my life and protecting my skin is the most important thing. So now I'm going to turn the time back over to our wonderful panelists and a new dermatologist who will speak with you more. I'm going to stick on and I hope to answer many questions for you, but I hope the message that you'll take away from me today is that having an important passion, mine loves sports. I just got out of 87 days in the WNBA bubble where I stayed in one hotel room for 3 months, 87 days. I worked 55 basketball games. I got out yesterday, and tomorrow I'm flying to College Station, Texas to do college football, Florida at Texas A&M. So I'm still going strong. It has been a miracle in many ways. But I hope that I can provide some inspiration to you to go strong with your passion, be passionate, find what you love in life, and help it keep you going with great love and inspiration, but also protect your skin. I hope I scared you straight a little bit. I have all these horrible scars, horrible things that have happened to me that I would not wish on any of you. And I pray that you will be more diligent with protecting your skin because you are here with us today. Thank you so much.
Holly, honestly, you are fabulous. And I heard you speak 2 years ago, and I remember saying to you then, I want every person I know and love to hear you speak because you touch our lives. Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Michelle Tarbox. She is Associate Professor of Dermatology in the School of Medicine at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. And she is also a practicing clinician, so she sees patients every day. And I said to her, Dr. Tarbox, we all have freckles and moles and skin things, and please help us. Now that we are scared straight by Holly, help us know when something's dangerous. So Dr. Tarbox, it's your turn to help us.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. And I just want to extend a personal thank you to Miss Holly. Your personal story and your gracious sharing of your experience is going to touch lives and help people make better decisions. And one of the reasons that is because when people think of bad skin cancers like melanoma, they might tend to think of people more like these gentlemen, all of whom suffered from melanoma. But the fact of the matter is it can touch anybody's lives. We learned about this with the experience of Eva Cassidy, an amazing American singer. Holly, through your experience you've shared today, and through others, we learned that this is something that can affect people in any age group or demographic, and we really need to help protect ourselves from it as much as possible. I do something called spot checks, and when I talk about different kinds of spots, the meanest, nastiest spot we talk about is malignant melanoma. It is one of the most malignant tumors of the skin, and it arises from the pigment-making cells that we have naturally in different parts of our skin, of our epidermis. It can also arise from moles that are pre-existing. And unfortunately, the incidence is increasing. The lifetime risk is going up, and unfortunately, it has the second highest mortality rate in older males greater than 65 years of age. But it also very much can affect younger patients, women, and people of color. Recently, people generously sharing their stories, like Holly and like Diana Torres, who was a recent Miss Universe who developed a melanoma and shared her story as a Puerto Rican in both English and Spanish through Instagram posts, have helped to raise awareness of the fact that this deadly type of skin cancer really can affect anybody. And it's so important to detect it early because early detection assures increased survival. Where does it come from? Most of the time, it comes from environmental risk, the main one being the sun or UV radiation. This can be obtained in acute or intermittent ways, like when you go on a sunny vacation in childhood and get that yearly sunburn. It can also arise through mundane things, walking from your car into a building, or driving, because the UV radiation actually can go through the window glass. And some people get increased areas of UV radiation by utilizing things like tanning salons to help try to achieve what some people think of as a healthy glow. And I hope to reorganize your thoughts around this over the course of this short presentation. You can have also chronic sun exposure of those exposed sites like the head and neck or the back of the hands. But one of the problems with this disease is that there's a lag time. So behavioral studies have shown that the closer a behavior is to a consequence, the more likely people are to modify the behavior because of that consequence. If you've ever trained a puppy, you know what I'm talking about. So if you're training a puppy and the puppy goes where they're not supposed to, you're supposed to discipline that puppy right there on the spot. So they associate the behavior with the consequence. But with melanoma, that doesn't happen. There's a 20 to 40 year lag. And so by the time we realize that something we've done has been dangerous to our health, it may be too late to make adjustments in real time. So that's why it's so important for healthy and brave and so gracious people like Holly to share her story with everyone so they can learn from her experience. I think it's such a generous thing to do, and I'm very touched by it. This is just a graph depicting how incidence and mortality of melanoma is increasing, especially in areas of the world where people of skin types 1 and 2, basically my skin type and Holly's skin type, predominate. You can see that also, though, this skin cancer can occur in patients of color, and it's important for everyone to know, love, and care for their skin. Sites of involvement in men tend to include the face and the ears, the head and neck, and the back and shoulders, whereas for women, it can be more common on the face, the chest, and the backs of the legs. There are major histologic subtypes, but those don't really make a big difference in the clinical behavior and how it behaves in the individual person. So we're going to talk more about how to recognize them when they develop and how to protect yourself against this type of skin cancer. It is more common in older adults, but it can happen in young people like Holly. It can even unfortunately happen in children. Sometimes melanoma is symptomatic. Sometimes it itches or it hurts or it bleeds, but sometimes it's asymptomatic as well. We try to teach people how to recognize melanomas with the ABCDE rules. A meaning asymmetry, one half of the lesion is unlike the other side. You can't fold it in half and make a nice match. Border irregularity, it looks like something has chomped a little bite out of the periphery of the lesion, out of the outside of it. This sort of looks like an ugly Mickey Mouse over here, not a cute shape for a mole. Color that's varying, meaning multiple colors in a lesion. The ones we worry about the most are actually some of our favorite colors as Americans. So if you see red, white, and blue on a flag, fantastic. You see red, white, and blue in one skin spot, doctor needs to see it. So multiple shades of brown or black or tan or any of those red, white, or blue colors in combination should be looked at carefully. And then we talk about diameter as well. The most dangerous types of melanoma tend to be a little bit larger, bigger than the size of a pencil eraser. However, some melanomas can be small. Any spot that's acting unusually that you're not sure is okay, it's better for your doctor to take a look at it. These are some examples on the left of some malignant melanomas. You can appreciate that unlike the benign lesions on the right, these lesions tend to be very asymmetric. They kind of look chaotic. They're not very pretty. They're not something that you could fold in half and match one side to the other. They're also a little bit larger, and multiple colors are present in each of these lesions. This is an example of superficial spreading melanoma occurring on the face. You can appreciate that the lesion is elevated. It actually sticks up above the surface of the skin, and there's multiple colors of brown. It's also relatively large. And this is an example of a very important type of melanoma that many people are unaware of. So while melanoma can frequently occur on those parts of our bodies that see the sun frequently, our face, our neck, our chest, our hands, it can also sometimes happen in places that don't see the sun that often, such as our feet and even our nails. So color change in a nail that you can't associate with an injury, like dropping something heavy on it, something that persists or changes over time, is also very important to show to your doctor. The way we manage melanoma typically is going to involve surgical excision with appropriate margins. That's based off of how big and how deep that melanoma is. And those characteristics are usually dependent on how long the spot has been there and how long it's been growing. As Holly did, sometimes we have to do a lymph node biopsy to see if the tumor has gotten out of the skin or it can spread to other organs, as it unfortunately did for our brave co-speaker today. So we really want to catch it before that happens. The important things to know about melanoma are really that the key is, as much as you can do, prevention. So working in a college town, as we do, I do sometimes see my young patients show up to get their skin exams looking a little bit more like a tomato than I would like for them to. So sun protection is a very important part of your skin's armamentarium against defense with skin aging and skin cancer. When I'm trying to motivate young people to protect their skin, I also sometimes talk about the effects of photoaging. So these are older photographs, but on the left you see Lindsay Lohan, a beautiful woman, but she's had a little bit more sun exposure than I would like for her to have based off of her natural genetics and skin type. And on the right we have Nicole Kidman. These pictures were taken in the same year for both of these actresses, and you can see there's almost 20 years difference in their age. However, Nicole, who has always rigorously protected her skin from the sun, looks younger actually than Lindsay Lohan does in these photographs. So when you're trying to motivate young people to do healthy things, sometimes you have to push on their vanity a little bit. I loved what Holly said about celebrating your own natural skin type. You know, this is something we need to address culturally. There is not just a one-size-fits-all definition of beauty. And the concept that beautiful means skinny, tan, and blonde, you know, that's not something that we need to push forward. Everyone has their own version of beautiful. And I want everyone to just embrace their own natural skin type and enjoy their own natural, healthy skin color. So I'm so grateful for those words of wisdom that you gave us, Holly, because I 100% agree. You don't have to have that like bright tan to like be a beautiful woman. You can embrace your natural skin tone and be very beautiful and well accepted. Now, when we talk about protection from the sun, some people don't realize that there are places where we get sun exposure you might not think of. We actually get solar radiation right through cloud cover. It actually, about 90% of it can go through the clouds. So some people think they don't need to protect their skin on a cloudy day, but that's just not true. You can also actually get sun through water. You can get it through window glass. You can even get some sun exposure when you're in the shade. So shade is certainly better than open sun exposure, but it isn't bulletproof. You can get reflections off of surfaces as well, such as sand and water, and you need to take those into account when you're planning your day. When we're using sunscreen, I love that Holly said she uses an SPF of 50. That is so much music to my dermatologist ears. The higher the SPF, the better protection that you do get, because it increases the amount of protection you get from different kinds of UV radiation. And most people don't put sunscreen on as thickly as it's studied when we determine what the SPF is. So if you put on an SPF of 25 and you put it on about half the concentration that it's studied at, which is what most people do, you don't get half of that 25 SPF, you actually get the square root. So you get 5. So the higher the SPF number, the greater your protection will be. But when it comes right down to it, the best sunscreen is the one you're going to use. So find one that you like the feel and the smell of, that you're comfortable using, and use it regularly. And then you also want to add other things to your skincare routine and your sun protection armamentarium. So I like to use sports analogies, even though I'm kind of sports illiterate, so I'm glad that we have an expert with us. But I like to think of having a team approach to your sun protection. So while the sunblock is kind of the quarterback and it's really important for your sun protection, sun protective clothing, sun smarts like avoiding the sun between the mid hours of the day, 10 to 2 p.m., and then also potentially supplements that decrease the effects of UV radiation can be beneficial. So 80% of the sun's rays will reach the earth on a cloudy day. Worst during those hours of 10 to 4, really 10 to 2 is the worst time. You do need the sunscreen on the skin at least 15 minutes before you go out in the sun, and you have to reapply it after you swim or sweat. You want to look for clothing that doesn't transmit light, so if you hold it up to the light, you don't want to be able to see through it. And a wide-brimmed hat is my favorite thing. Here in Lubbock, Texas, go get you a nice cowboy hat. I bet you look real cute in one. Also, don't forget the scalp. We get sun through our hair, and we can get sunburns on the part. Sun on the scalp can cause damage, and it can also cause skin cancer. And skin cancers on the scalp are often detected later and have a worse prognosis. So you don't want to forget to protect your scalp. If you do want to get a little bit of color, I understand that. Some of us like to look a little bit glowy, but there are safer ways to do it than exposing yourself to UV radiation. Sunless tanner is a 3-carbon sugar. It just sticks to the outside protein envelope of the skin. It's harmless unless you're actually allergic to it. And it's the same browning reaction as bread does in the oven. Very natural, very safe. There's a little bit of a smell to it. It usually goes away in a short period of time. It doesn't have a lot of sunscreen potential, so you might need to add a little bit of sun protection to that, but it can help you achieve that look that you're going for without damaging your skin or increasing your risk of skin cancer. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here with the Laura Bush Institute today. Survivors of breast cancer know how hard it is to go through cancer therapy and potentially chemotherapy. I'm so grateful for Holly sharing her experience. I hope for our patients to be able to avoid that level of need by detecting and protecting their skin against skin cancer at an earlier stage of the game. There's another important connection that I want to emphasize as well. The genetic variants that can predispose people to breast cancer can also genetically predispose them to skin cancer, specifically melanoma. And so if you or a loved one has been diagnosed or treated for breast cancer, a skin exam is another important part of your 360-degree skin and health care. Thank you so much for this opportunity today. I would love to take any questions. And Holly, you are a rock star.
Actually, Dr. Tarbox, we've got a couple of questions for you, and since you're right here handy, and then we'll do some questions for Holly. A couple of questions around sunscreen. Does it matter if it's a lotion or a spray? The sprays are so much easier to use. And then the other question follow up with that is, what about 100? I mean, is it really 100, or are we doing all the good with a 50?
Those are all great questions. So I'll start with the vehicle question. When we talk about vehicles, we're not talking about like motor cars. We're talking about what the medicine or the kind of protective chemical is in that helps it to do its job. So when we're talking about sunscreens, those vehicles can include lotions, sprays. There are actually wax sticks or solids that can be used. There can be creams and gels, all sorts of vehicles for sunscreen. The most important thing is that it's a vehicle that you tolerate well and that you can get good, even application with. So a lotion can be applied pretty evenly with relative ease, and you can usually tell if you've missed an area. Sprays can be more convenient and are also usually an easy way to renew your sun protection in the middle of the day. They have to be applied properly though. So when you are spraying a sunscreen, if it's an aerosol spray, you need to be about 8 to 10 inches from the area that you're trying to protect. And you usually spray in gentle sweeping motions, and then the key is to actually gently rub it into the skin afterwards so that you can ensure that you have even disposition of the product. A really important thing with the sprays is they have an accelerant in them, just like hairspray does. So until that spray dries, if you go to an open flame source, you can actually catch that sunscreen on fire. So every year somebody goes and sprays themselves down with sunscreen and immediately goes to a barbecue grill and gives themselves an impromptu facial haircut. And so we don't really want people to have that experience, of course. So just allow it to dry and then you're absolutely fine otherwise. You can also use, like I said, it can be in liquids, it can be in gels, it can be in creams. Some people have had a little concern over the reports that came out, I think, last year about the absorption of some sunscreen ingredients into our blood. And the chemical sunscreen ingredients can be absorbed in quantities that are detectable into the blood. We have no demonstration that those are dangerous, but for people wishing to avoid those exposures, you can focus on the mineral sunscreens, or what we call physical sunscreens. So those would be zinc and titanium dioxide products. My very favorite one that's easy to find and easy to use for most people is the Neutrogena Sheer Zinc. It applies very well. It's just zinc oxide, which is very inert, safe even for babies, and it usually gives great protection. So I like that a lot. The number of the protection question that you asked about the SPF 100, do we really need a number that high? That goes back again to how densely people apply it. So in the studies, people are usually applying this sunscreen in a quantity and thickness that's about twice as intense as what people usually use in real life. And when you do something about half the intensity with a sunscreen, you only get a square root of that protection. So if you're applying SPF 100 and you kind of do it less than rigorously, it's more like having SPF 10, which is definitely much, much better than if you're applying an SPF of 25 and getting only a functional SPF of 5. So really applying it in decent thickness is appropriate, and using that sun protective clothing as an added layer of protection is a great idea. It actually also helps you stay cooler. A lot of people think that it keeps you too warm, but there are plenty of brands that make great sun protective clothing that are made to breathe that actually will keep you cooler and more comfortable in the sun.
Fantastic. One more question for you, and then we'll go to Holly. So you've been out on the lake all day, you've used your sunblock, but you probably didn't use enough, or you didn't reapply it on time. Is there something we can do after our shower to try to help our skin, maybe not, heal it, or to help soothe the sunburn or the extra sun we got?
That's a great question. So there are a couple of things I like to recommend for people after they've had a sunburn, unfortunately. When the cat's out of the barn, that's the wrong phrase, when the horse is out of the barn. So you can use Tylenol. Tylenol or ibuprofen can help to interfere with the inflammatory cascade that starts once that UV radiation causes damage to the skin cells. That can improve your comfort and decrease some of the redness and shedding of the skin later on after the burn tries to recover. You can also use topical products intended to sort of soothe the discomfort. If you're not allergic to it, aloe gel can be beneficial. Some people get comfort from calamine lotion. You can use cool baths that actually can help sort of cool the skin off. And you can even use colloidal oatmeal in the bath to help soothe the skin. And then there is a supplement that I prefer for people to use before they go in the sun, but there's some evidence it's even helpful after they go in the sun. And so this is kind of a fun thing. I like to question my residents about this all the time, so they all know the answer to this. But the active ingredient is called Polypodium Leukotomos. So Polypodium Leukotomos is a fern. It's tropical, grows on the equator, and people who naturally live in those areas have used that plant medicinally to protect them against sun-related illness for centuries. So it has been included in a supplement you can buy over the counter. I have no relationship to this company at all. The product is called HelioCare. It's had no reported side effects, no reported drug interactions, and is also being studied for the preservation of memory. So I would put it in the water if I was allowed to. But this is something that is able to help protect you about the sun exposure beforehand, but even afterwards, because of its antioxidant properties, can help decrease some of the damage that the sun exposure caused.
Wow, thank you. That is so helpful. I know I'm going to take that to heart. So thank you so much, Dr. Tarbox. I've got a couple questions for Holly. So come back, Holly. The first question that was sent in just as the minute you started was, how in the world are you balancing your career as a sports journalist with the needs of your own personal health and your family? I know you have a grown son. You have a legion of fans who want to know how you're doing, you know, every few days. So how are you creating balance for yourself?
Okay, well, I'm not. So that's the honest answer right now. You know, obviously I'm exhausted from kind of being in this confined atmosphere. That was a very great challenge. But what I have done, I actually have my little planner here, and I have set up every possible doctor's appointment for next week. So I actually have an appointment the 13th, 8:40 a.m. with my dermatologist, my dentist. You know, so when I do have time, I am trying to get on that. And I'm glad you asked me this, because one thing I forgot to tell you that I'd love to share with the group. I was the queen of, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. You know, like, oh, I've got this little thing. Oh, I'm sure it's nothing.
Right.
And I have now become the queen of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get it checked immediately, because the worst thing they can tell me is it's nothing. Or, you know, that's the best thing they can tell you. You know, like, that does you no harm to go and have an appointment and make sure that it's nothing and hasn't spread. I wish I could go back and do my cancer journey so many times. I would do so many things differently, but the number one thing I would do differently is to not procrastinate. I know every single person on this call has that one thing that's bugging them. Maybe it's a small lump in your breast, or maybe it's a spot on your body. Maybe it's an ache somewhere. Go get things checked out, because our notion of like, well, if I don't know, then it won't be frightening is ridiculous. Like, just go get things checked out. I know some people have some anxiety to go into doctor's offices and places right now because of COVID, but, you know, wear a mask. I've just been in the world's safest bubble. I've just had 85 straight negative COVID tests. So I believe in masks, regardless of what anyone says. I've lived that experience, and I think you can go and get your things checked out, and do not procrastinate during this pandemic, because things are growing and changing on your body and in your skin and your cells. So I have my appointments. I want everyone out there to go get theirs.
That's great advice, and we'll take that to heart. We just got a question for you, Holly. You have been 25 years, you've been in sports. Is there anything left that you haven't done, or any event that you still have on your wish list?
Yes, 1000%. It's the Olympics. You know, I have worked for ESPN and ABC for my entire 25-year career. And so I've never worked for ABC or the Olympics. And so I was really trying to figure it out, some way to do a talent share with NBC for the Olympics, because softball is a sport that I'm very passionate about. And it was going to be back and included in the Tokyo Olympics this year. So that would be my bucket list. One day, I hope you all get to see me cover something on the Olympics. That's the one thing out there that I haven't done that I would love to.
Well, we're going to count on that. One other question that came in, because you've been so public and you've been so kind to share your journey, are there times that you've regretted it, just wished you could be alone or
You know, it's funny
private?
you say that. I never set about having my journey be private. It was the weirdest thing of how it happened. I had a tumor in my arm. You know, I didn't share anything about my cancer and my journey until I was severely ill, until I became stage 4. And it was on accident. Is my boss said, hey, what should we tell people when you start missing games? And this was going to be my 3rd surgery, and nobody had known before. And I said, nobody's going to care if I'm missing games. Like, no one's going to be like, where's Holly Rowe on this game? But the day I went into the hospital for that surgery, it was 8 in the morning. And as I was signing forms, a lot of the nurses and people coming in to get the forms signed were saying, are you that Holly Rowe from ESPN? And I thought, oh, well, maybe people are going to be interested in this. So I just sent out a little text paragraph to my PR gal at ESPN. And when I woke up from surgery, it was going across the ESPN bottom line, Holly Rowe has successful cancer surgery. So, you know, I've never really talked to her about that, or how it got from just one little paragraph to the PR lady, in case somebody asked, to going across the ESPN bottom line. But I do believe all things happen for a reason. I'm not sure I would have been public about everything I was going through. And by some accident, it happened. And I think it called me to a higher purpose to share this story. I mean, if I can prevent one person from getting skin cancer, or going and getting a melanoma check so that they don't become anything further than stage 3, then that was worth it. And so it's sometimes embarrassing. You know, I don't want you guys all to know all my scars and what's wrong with me. And, you know, I don't feel perfect and pretty all the time because of all of this. But it's important to share and prevent for others. So that's, I guess it happened for a reason.
Well, it did, and we're all the better for it. Let's go back to Dr. Tarbox for a minute. I think she's thought of something she wants to share with us.
So actually, I wanted to touch on something you said, Holly, which was so important, and I thank you for saying it. You said, I'm now the queen of let's get this checked. Like, you used to be a little bit worried maybe. I've heard patients say, I didn't want to bother you with this, or I didn't, want to take up your time. Your doctor will never be upset with you for bringing some concern to their attention that might be significant. I would rather look at 100 benign spots that my patients have on their bodies to catch one person's melanoma from giving them a lifelong struggle than anything else. So if you have a concern, don't hesitate to bring it to your doctor's attention. And if you're having trouble getting an appointment and you're really worried, you may need to make a little bit of noise. So, letting your doctor's office know, I'm really worried about this. It's changing, it's bleeding, it's hurting. Make sure that the doctor knows your level of concern so they can get you in as quickly as possible. Another point I wanted to bring up, because you brought up the pandemic, which was so intelligent and important in this time. A lot of states have extended telemedicine privileges and are allowing us to care for patients remotely via a Zoom interface or a FaceTime interface, which can at least allow us to triage patients who really need to get in quickly. So even if you're afraid of coming into the doctor's office, you could contact your physician's office and ask if a televisit is available, and you could show the area of concern to the physician, who can then help to steer your care and ensure that something important doesn't get neglected because of the adjustments we've all had to make with this pandemic. So thank you for saying that, Holly.
Really, really great advice. And I've been known to take a snapshot of a freckle and send it off myself. So I encourage everyone to do that. Holly, I know, just to wrap up, I know you've been active in some of the cancer prevention movements. Do you want to just tell us briefly about that before we tell everyone goodbye?
Yes, at ESPN, they don't like us to really talk about politics. And I thought, well, it's hard because I want to get involved with tanning beds. I wish my mother or somebody would have slapped me instead of letting me go to a tanning bed, for God's sake. So what I would like to tell you is there is legislation. There are things that you can do to educate kids. If I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self what was ahead for me, I would have been smarter. And so I do think that it's important to support any legislation that comes through with permissions and telling people about tanning bed usage. Just one time in a tanning bed, and Dr. Tarbox, you can correct me if my stats are off, but I believe what my AIM at Melanoma group told me is one tanning bed session can increase your chances for melanoma 50%. One time.
Right.
That is going to prom, I'm going to go get tan. And that will increase your chances 50%. It's ridiculous. So I was happy to know about the, the spray on tans or things like that. I had been worried about those being chemical. And so I was grateful to know those were sugar. So that's something I might look at doing. But I'm also trying to just get better about being okay with this natural skin that I have. So.
Well, I think you're absolutely beautiful, and you're brave and you're generous, and the kindness in your heart shows through. Thank you so much for sharing your story. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
What an amazing hour that we've had. Thank you both for sharing your stories and your all of your experience and giving us all a gift that really means the world to us. I will just put in a pitch. We have our next Laura Bush Institute webinar. It's called Feed Your Mind, Nourish Your Inner Self. It's going to be on November 12th, and we have two fabulous therapists, Dr. Stephanie Moses and Dr. Sarah Wakefield, who are going to be talking to us about maintaining our sanity, not only through the COVID crisis, but with our kids home from school and sending our kids off to college and letting our husbands travel and all the many things, ourselves trying to get to continue our lives on a more normal level. So we'll be talking about mental health next week. Holly?
Can I say one last thing
Yes,
about
of
that?
course.
So I've been in this WNBA bubble, and it was one of the greatest mental challenges I've ever been through. I really worried for my own mental health at times. And talking to some of the WNBA players, they're a little younger than I am, and I learned something very important, and I hope you guys will share this at your next meeting. I used to think I just had to be stronger and be tougher. And I would think, well, I'm tough. I don't quit. I'm tough. I'm tough. And what I'm learning is I have to be kind to myself and my mental health. So I hope everybody will tune in. I would love to come back as I'll just listen in to everybody else and be a participant via the Zoom. But I'm learning a lot myself of it's not about being tougher. It is about being smarter and kinder to yourself mentally during all of this.
You're so right. And so on that note, we will ask everyone to please take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself, use your skin, take care of your skin, nourish your skin, and please come back to see us next month. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Dr. Tarbox, and thank you, Holly. I'm going to be checking on your Instagram post to see how your doctor's appointment was next week.
And don't procrastinate. No procrastinating.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much.